Welcome everyone to Trimming Armour. My name is Will. You guys can do a little individual introduction as per usual. Go ahead. Not everyone at once, come on.
Go on, Mohammed. Maikeru. Wait, can we start
yes.
again? I don't know what.
Maikeru, tell me
Hi
about
guys,
yourself.
Mohammed here. Sigrid.
Perfect start. Oh, okay, this is great. We have a guest today. So it's since you guys cannot introduce yourselves, it's Ravlar in the right corner. You can say hi, Ravlar. Say hello.
What's up, guys?
Why is
Ravlar.
these introductions always so awkward? Okay, thank you.
Whoa.
Great. We have a guest today.
Toxic.
I'm not going to introduce the rest of you. Guides, you're going to get introduction. You're a guest tonight. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Let me know about your name, what you do, your favorite color, and if you prefer fruit or candy.
Alright, hello everybody, my name is GuidesForUsAll. I make RuneScape content over here on YouTube and Twitch, mostly old school RuneScape nowadays, but I did used to delve into RuneScape 3. My favorite color is purple, and I think I prefer fruits to vegetables.
Wow, okay, that's pretty good.
No, fruits to candy. That was the question. Dude.
Fruits to candy.
Oh,
yeah,
fruits to
that's,
candy?
Fruits to vegetables.
Well, you have to eat vegetables like candy if you want to stay healthy, so
yeah,
I'll still stick with
that's
fruits.
True. That's a very adult, mature decision. I would not say that, but I'll take it. Now, it is interesting that you say that you play, well, you make RuneScape content though, right? Because nowadays, RuneScape is two different games, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you say RuneScape, what do you, think about, because obviously, it's, you see what Jagex say, they're making, oh, we have this update coming to RuneScape now. And they mean RuneScape 3, because they, as a company, don't really say RuneScape 3 a lot of them.
Yeah.
Whereas old school, they say old school RuneScape. So I feel
this is something I've thought about quite a bit because I have nothing else to think about really. But on my the more I think about it, old school RuneScape in my eyes is RuneScape, right? That is what RuneScape is to me, and RS3 is I think they should rebrand RS3 and call it something else and not involve RuneScape in it. Because calling old school RuneScape old school, I feel it's not selling it enough because it's more than old school. It was old school in 2013 when it came. It's a much different game now.
I don't know. I feel
bold statement.
Yeah, I feel like they used to call it 07scape, and now they don't. They call it old school, which
That's
makes
true.
more sense now because it isn't 07, it's got extra. So I think old school on there's good. But I honestly see them say RS3 quite a bit nowadays because it is more than RuneScape. I think on their live streams and stuff, they even have RuneScape 3 as an actual icon or logo half the time as well. They don't just have RuneScape, they'll have the 3 on there as well half the time.
Well, sure, but you have the front page news, oh, we got this big update coming to RuneScape soon. Whereas in old school, they would say they got this big update coming to old school RuneScape.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of an identity problem having two games with such similar names, but after all this time, you can't really change the name of RuneScape 3, and I feel like they kind of need to
do that now.
Yeah, they kind of need to make people think when they think just RuneScape, think modern RuneScape and old school RuneScape as RuneScape. It's more of a branding thing, because I don't really see the problem with calling it old school as long as people can see the difference between them.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of good to call it old school anyways, because it kind of shows that the game is meant to be in the past. Not that it is anymore, because they take their own kind of route to it.
I like this completely different now. If say for example, if there was no EOC, the direction that the game would have taken is completely tangential to the way that they've done it. It's really interesting how they've gone about it and how it's been so successful with such little amount of resources put into it.
I like the fact too that there are two different RuneScape games, so you could see two different visions for the game really and see storylines play out two different ways, and it's a cool variety of it. I do wish people would give RuneScape 3 a bit more of a chance, as I still do feel like it has a lot to offer. But yeah. I think the naming, I know I'm getting a bit off track here, the naming old school RuneScape I feel is still fitting because it's 2019. I mean, there are games with lifelike graphics out there. You can barely tell the difference. And when you click on this game and look at it, you need them to tell you it's old school for a reason because you're going to think this is a game that 5 people play.
Right.
It's been around for so long that it just doesn't look modern. You know what I mean?
That was exactly what I thought, because with the retro games, you call them retro games or old school games, doesn't mean they're outdated. It just means they're they look old, and I feel old school for RuneScape is right because it looks old school. It not necessarily is old school, but it definitely looks the part.
Yeah. So like my point on that is just like, imagine if you're a returning player, you haven't played RuneScape in like 10, 15 years. Like you log on to RS3 and then you were like, if my reaction would be like, this isn't RuneScape. This is like something random. This is like navigating a spaceship. This is like a completely different game. It's like I'm probably like in a very small minority, but I'm actually for like RS3 rebranding completely to something different. A really wild
I think that's
idea.
a huge step. I mean, RuneScape's been around for what, 18 years or whatever? Like, obviously there's going to be development, and obviously they're going to try to make it more up to date with the times. So saying that RuneScape is no longer RuneScape because it keeps up with the times is a bit bold, in my opinion. I don't know, like, there's clearly a big difference between the games, but I don't know, like, sure, this MTX and whatever, but other than that, what are, like, the actual differences? Like, okay, I guess combat? Is that like the big factor here? Is the combat what drives most people off?
I would say that the thing that, as far as I can tell, talking to a lot of people who play exclusively old school, the biggest thing that turns people away from RuneScape 3 would be the combat system, mostly because of other MMOs they've played that have similar combat systems, not even necessarily because of RuneScape 3's combat system. I feel a lot of people don't even get to the point where they're really trying it out because it's so similar to a lot of other MMOs, it puts them off immediately.
Yeah. So you don't think that the I'm not trying to put like words in your mouth there.
No.
Obviously, the mobile release did very well for old school. Do you think that would be relatable to RuneScape 3 as well whenever that gets an official release?
I would love to see it be that successful. I think it's a game that could work well on mobile, but the problem is I feel like, as far as I've played with the beta, it's not as good on mobile as old school, just because of the complexity of the interfaces and how many more features there are, and the combat requires, dare I say, a bit more attention than old school RuneScape to perform. Too. And but for players that already play old school, I mean, RS3 mobile will definitely keep player retention and keep people playing a lot, even if they don't have time at home.
Exactly.
They're updating it though. They're updating it. They're making lesser abilities. Instead of just giving you something like Rack at level 1, you'll have lesser Dragon Breath, lesser Concentrated Blast, lesser Combust, whatever. And you'll have like 5 abilities, and they hide them, and they put you on Revo. So it'll be essentially the same as old school at the start. And then they're like, hey, look, there's this threshold. And if you click it, you deal more damage. And then they're the only things you're clicking at the start until you get to like a higher level. Then they like reveal it all to you.
I think that's an absolutely amazing idea. I think that'll increase player retention a lot, definitely. Because even for me starting, the combat was pretty confusing. And even when I was like over half a year in, I didn't really know how to do the combat super well. I was kind of just letting it play for me almost.
Yeah, the thing is, right, like when we spoke to JMods about it, I asked them like this specific question, like, what are you marketing RS3 towards? A new audience or getting old players who used to play RuneScape back on RS3? They said the latter. Like, they want to get people back and they want to keep the current player base happy. Whereas like, like mobile is going to be great for us because we understand the game. But it's still a fucking spaceship to someone else who has, like, never played the game before. There's so many different things going on. It's hard enough to grasp on a computer if you're, like, not familiar with it, let alone on mobile. So I don't think, like, it will attract many new people. It may get quite a few people back, and it will keep a lot of people playing RS3.
I think that, like, the thing with RuneScape is that it's an explorer's game, obviously. Like, you go into it and you explore something. Now, I've been a Combat 3 for like a lot of years, so I don't really know how to do combat very easily. But a few times I have tried out combat one way or another, and with the abilities and whatever, I still find it all confusing because I don't know what the different abilities do. And sure, they tell you what to do, but it's also confusing. I need to remember it, and it's like, I don't know how many abilities there are. There's so many that you can't really keep track at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know, I find that confusing, and I do agree that it shouldn't necessarily be all that much, considering that RuneScape is not really a game that you go on to kill things per se. You go on to it to explore and find new things and do quests and all that kind of jazz. I don't know if that's like an opinion or fact, but
I don't agree. Controversial. Yeah, I think that the thing is, like, look at old school RuneScape. It's so simple, you know what I mean? How do you chop down trees? You click the tree. How do you kill something? You click attack, you know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing that people have cemented in their heads as to what RuneScape is. So it becomes a bit more difficult when they go on to RuneScape 3 and see it be more complicated when their preconception is already click to attack, click to chop, you know?
That's why it's so good for mobile, dude. Like, it fits exactly on mobile. I've been playing it on my tablet, and, like, I've really enjoyed the whole experience. There's not much I'm missing out on, apart from, like, the client, like, using RuneLite or something. It's so good on, like, mobile, whereas RS3 is, like, I know what I'm doing, so I can manage, but, yeah, it's not as intuitive.
I was never really a fan of, like, the third-party clients, because they never really made that much sense to me. I mean, like, you have, like RuneLite, is that, like, the most popular one currently?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, by far.
I saw, probably you guys have seen this as well, but I saw this Reddit post or something whenever Jagex threatened to shut them down. And there were so many people who threatened to quit the entire game.
Yeah, it was a shit show, dude. It was so messy.
But I feel like that's a very bad thing, not on RuneLite's part, but on Jagex's part, when the game is in a state where a third-party client is required to keep its player base.
I mean,
that doesn't make sense to me.
It's a different issue, right? Like, for example, like, are third-party clients good or bad? Like, from Jagex's point of view, they have less control over what they want in the game. But on the other hand, the positive for them is, like, they have to spend less dev time working on quality of life things. Whereas, like, these people are doing it for free for them. The issue that the people had was that Jagex allowed OS Buddy to stay on, and then they were like, no, RuneLite can't stay on. And it was like some controversial stuff about OS Buddy giving Jagex money or something. It was like, I have no idea like the exact details, but there was more to it than that.
This is a really good opportunity, actually, I think, to highlight some of the differences between Old School and RS3, and some of the things about RS3 that people wouldn't hate for sure, because in those third-party clients are a lot of features that already exist in RuneScape 3, such as when you get a drop, it tells you how much money it's worth on the ground, and just small things like this, loot tracker, XP per hour trackers, things that RS3 already has, maybe not in the way that people want it, but they already have these features, and it's not like these modern gaming features are the things turning people off. It's just things like the complicated combat system, in my opinion, and the interface kind of being a little clunky, especially depending on the size of your monitor. So I feel like there are just a bunch of little things that turn off newer players, and it's not really a struggle for them to keep the old players in, because I feel like most of the people playing now are people that have been playing RuneScape for a long time.
But I don't get, like, why won't Jagex just add their own RuneLite options or, like, the same alternatives? I don't get that.
Do you want me to say it? I'm going to use the words.
Go on.
Engine work.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. The spaghetti code is unraveling.
Throw it out.
Sure, yeah, no, I guess that makes sense.
But no, it's really just like they don't have to do the work, because most of the third-party clients are quite reined in. I mean, RuneLite doesn't have that many features that I would think even impact the game that much. There are a few controversial ones, but for the most part, it's just like being able to mark a tile on the ground or see how much money your drops are worth and stuff like that. Now, there are some really bad third-party clients that I wish they would take a stance on, but overall, I think it's mostly just them not having to do the extra work that the third-party clients are willing to do for free, basically. It's like free labor for them.
Free as in, like, RuneLite's willing to do it for free, right? The
Definitely,
issue that the OS Buddy wasn't, like, people, well, if you wanted the pro version, people had to pay for it, and that's when things got messy. But yeah, I completely agree. It's less stress on Jagex's devs on doing something which someone is doing for free. Like, why would they complain? But the only issue is, like, when you said overpowered plugins, like the Zulrah plugin where it told you exactly where to stand and like what was coming next. But then Jagex were like, okay, take that down. It's like they have to have a communication with them, I feel.
Yeah,
I agree on that. So, but guys, you switched from RuneScape 3 to Old School like a year ago, 8 months, something like that?
It was like half a year ago, I think, when I stopped. Well, actually, yeah, maybe about half a year ago I stopped making videos on RS3. I had been doing a hardcore Iron Man for a while.
So what like made you do that transition?
Honestly, I had been working on those videos too much, and it kind of just burned me out. It was nothing really specific about the game that had made me not enjoy it or anything. It was more just that I was spending all my time on my Iron Man just leveling it up, and I didn't really see the point in continuing to do that.
So it more just like a random transition. Wasn't there anything like specific that made you go like, oh, I'm gonna play Old School now?
Not really. I've been playing old school for longer than I've been playing RS3. You know, I'm making YouTube videos on it and such, and I just had more motivation to do that. And there are a couple times I've been frustrated with the developers making certain updates. Everything breaks when they release an update sometime, but there's no real specific thing that's driven me away from the game, or even that's keeping me away from the game. In fact, I plan on coming back and making more videos on it when the Land Out of Time drops next month. This month, it's July now, isn't it? Yeah.
That's interesting now, because how many subscribers did you have before you made the switch?
I'm not sure. 3 months ago, I probably had just a couple thousand less than I do now.
Oh, really? So it's not actually been that big of a.
But you've been making but you've been making videos on both sets of games, right? So
yeah, it's not like I've switched to old school and that I quit RS3. It's more that I had been doing old school for a while before I started doing RS3, and I did them both in tandem, and then I kind of just dropped off RS3 somewhat recently.
Wait, how did your viewer base react to that? Your RuneScape 3 videos?
Initially, it was not too bad. There was a bit of kickback from people saying, "Oh, RS3 sucks," but there was more kickback from RuneScape 3 players when I was complaining about RuneScape 3 in my first few videos.
Oh, really?
People saying that I was crapping on it for stupid reasons, and I'll concede that. But it was just my first perspective opinions on the game, and I told people I thought that the Christmas event was too OP. I mean, I was a new player and I was getting boosted. It's not significant, but level 20, level 30 by opening Christmas boxes or whatever, and it was I just complained about that, and people got a little upset. Yeah.
There's something I want to ask though, like specifically, is not like when you first done the move, because you're always gonna have complaints from both sides when you first like start making both.
Oh yeah.
But nowadays that you're focusing mostly on old school, do you get RS3 players like slating you or slating the game in your comment section on your old school videos?
Sometimes I'll get one or two guys that'll say, "Oh, this game sucks. It's an old game. Only people stuck in the past will play it." But mostly it's just people asking, "Hey, do you plan on making RuneScape 3 videos again?" Or something like that.
We're so gentle in our keeping it, aren't we, guys?
I don't think that, yeah.
That's a big thing that got me, because I made a video, I think it was like 2 months ago now, and it was like why I play RS3. And literally, like every day, I need to delete a comment on that video that is just slating the game to such an extent. It just literally, no one wants to read that comment because it just has so much foul language or so much hate in it that I just have to continuously remove stuff from RS3 related videos. That one is one in particular that I get loads on, obviously, but it's all old school RuneScape players saying like, "Oh, this game's dead. Go over to old school. You're crap. You only got these achievements in your game because it's easy." Blah blah. Yeah, sure, it's easier, but like, why did they come onto my video to say that? Like, I thought, hey, maybe RS3 players go onto old school videos and say the same thing, but it always just seems mostly old school hating on RS3, and it's a bit sad sometimes for me personally.
I think it's just
I tried to imagine that it's like a meme at this point, but that it doesn't really excuse it. It's still just annoying.
You can't really excuse it as a meme. Like, you can never excuse toxic behavior as a meme. I'm sure if anybody's, looked at anything political in their life, they know there's a lot of memes in that community, but so much of it is toxic, and you can't just excuse it because it's a meme or it's popular opinion or whatever like that. But in the terms of RuneScape 3 versus old school, there is a lot more toxicity from the old school community towards the RuneScape 3 community. I don't know exactly what the reason is. It's probably a combination of a bunch of things. Like, people that used to play RuneScape when they were kids, they come back and it's different, and they just, get upset about that. Or they played and quit because of big things like EOC, free trade restrictions, and they permanently have this bad image seared in their head.
It's you see that initial conception of EOC being trash. Like, we have to be completely honest here. When EOC first came out, it was an absolute shit show.
Oh yeah, I got into the beta for that. It was horrific.
It was like so horrific, and then they changed the combat system so that people were level 200, and then they had like herblore levels giving you combat levels and stuff. It was a complete and utter mess, and like if these people were like, "Okay, I'm quitting this game now," then old school comes around, they finally have their game back. So I can kind of understand why they're like, "I absolutely hate that game," and they still think it's the same as it was on release. Like, and that.
Well, to be honest, I feel like that's like not really that much of a counting argument anymore. It's been 6 years.
Yeah, but they believe it. They've not tried it.
Half a decade.
No, they've not tried it in that time.
But I gotta say, like, if they can walk around playing this game, being on Reddit and wherever, YouTube for that case, for 6 years, and still not realize that things have changed at least a little bit.
Yeah.
That's just ignorant, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that is ignorance.
I don't think that's the point that Revlar's... I don't think he's making the point that that's really the excuse for it. It's just that some people don't really care to change their opinions about the game.
Okay, sure, that's fair.
And it's, I mean, as rough as it is, and it might not be the right thing, it's really up to the RuneScape 3 community to keep doing what they're doing and putting the game in a positive light when it makes the right moves and keep pushing the developers in the right direction to make
it's so hard,
better.
Dude.
I know it's difficult,
so
and
hard.
it is insanely difficult, and unfortunately the burden is left on the people who make the content for it to put the game in the good light. And there's always going to be people that hate on it, no matter what you do, really.
I feel like there's always going to be a mob mentality kind of thing.
Definitely.
Like, everyone gangs up. So if one person says it, everyone then just agrees with them. Even if they haven't even, like, went and tried it for years and years, like you say. They all just now have that in their mind. And how the hell do you stop someone thinking that? It's like, impossible.
RuneScape 3 is cancelled.
That'd be a day. I don't know what's going on. Like, I think it's a good sign that they're at least trying to develop more stuff for it, you know?
I mean...
Because I feel like it'd be very reflective on the content if they had given up on the game.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it doesn't really seem like they are giving up on it.
I think one thing which RS3, like, the devs and the culture in general... They don't realize that the journey is, like, more important than the destination nowadays. I feel like old school is like, okay, we're going to give you the skilling method. It's going to be engaging. You're not going to get 1 million XP an hour, but, like, you will really feel satisfied when you come out on the other end and you've achieved what you want to. Whereas on RuneScape 3, just like, there's literally half the skills. You can get 1 million XP an hour. And, like, it's really geared towards getting 120s and 200 mils. Whereas old school is, like, getting 99 is a huge achievement.
Now, I do actually want to make an argument on that. Because, okay, if we look away from, like, the gift, like, Christmas gifts and all those kind of things, you just kind of stick to the traditional skilling methods. I did try old school, not too, well, I've tried, like, occasionally, every now and then. And what keeps me off every single time is how long things take. And now that might be just, like, a little disheartening, like, I'm used to the RS3 rates kind of thing. But I feel like it's a lot more better for me as a player to see some kind of progress when I'm playing the game, rather than just know that I'm stuck on level 50 for, like, 3 days, you know?
I think that's a big problem that both games have, honestly, is the early game progression. In old school, the early game progression can slag on that anybody with lower attention spans for the games is going to leave it long before they reach the satisfying content, which in my opinion in old school RuneScape, like low to mid-level, that transition into the mid-level content is some of the best, most amazing stuff that the game has to offer. Like once you get to high level, it's still really fun and there's a lot of content, but it's nowhere near as good as that first time you pass through into the mid-level content and experience that. Whereas in RS3, in my opinion, the early game is really just not that great in progression-wise. It's kind of like, it's not necessarily slow, it's just there's no real path, and I know they've been trying to work on the path thing, but like I keep going back to it's a little confusing. But in RS3, it's so much fun for the veterans because the late game content is so good and so fun, but not everyone gets to reach that point.
Exactly that.
What I'm pretty happy with as well regarding RuneScape 3, I saw a Reddit post about this very recently where some old school player tried out RuneScape 3, and he pointed out this quite well that RuneScape 3 compared to old school has a progression where every 10th level there's something new to try out, like a new place to go to, something new to explore, something new to collect. And I think that is a very good option for RuneScape 3 because it gives that sense of exploration every time you get a new 10th level. I don't think old school necessarily does that because when you hit level 40 woodcutting, you're stuck with willow trees for like the next
He also gave some counter arguments though. He said like combat wise, I read that post, it was really good. And he said like one of his biggest gripes was combat. He stuck to birth up trolls till 40. It was like, why did I have to go kill trolls till 40? Like, he didn't want to do that, but he had to, kind of thing.
Yeah. Because it was the most efficient path to get to.
I totally agree. It needs to. The curve is so crazy. It's like you go at the start, you're getting like 10k experience now, and then you get like 20k, 30k. You hit level 70 or 80, and it's like, oh, now you're getting 500k experience now. It's like, why is that? It's literally
that's not even an exaggeration. That is literally like for the most of the skills. But like going on like Will's point, I feel like RS3 does not invest anything into early game experience, whereas
they don't. That's very true.
Whereas old school have invested into free to play and small things like adding like free to play bosses and like things like that, which just like which makes the early game more enjoyable, right? Whereas RS3 is just a mess, dude. Like, I don't even know we don't have Tutorial Island anymore. It's just like you're on a little.
Oh, we do have that now, actually.
Yeah, I heard that they are bringing that back, which I think is a good idea.
It's super important that they do.
Couple months now.
But like it's you're just there's no good introduction into the game and getting used to it. Whereas like old school, like you go through the path and you learn about it a bit more. It's just there's so much to do and like not much guidance on what path to take.
What I feel like I'm noticing, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like RuneScape 3 is working on making the game more, I don't know, what's the word, sense-wise? Like, you have there's 10 levels, every 10 level there's something new. They're trying to make the game easier to understand to some degree.
Yeah.
They're releasing content for all kinds of sorts, new bosses, and making a lot more diversity. I think that's the word I'm looking for. They're making a lot more diversity than what potentially old school has. And I think they will eventually get to the beginning stage of the game as well, whenever all that stuff is sorted out. I feel like RuneScape 3 is quite a good MMO mid-game to high level.
Yeah.
That's
really, and I feel like that's something they've been sorted out for the past few years, because it wasn't with EOC. Like, when that was released, everything was a big mess. Now, they're working on things with everything, like the unfinished business era, or whatever you want to call it. They've been working on making RuneScape a better game in general, where everything makes more sense. The combat diversity thing that's being released now, that's also a great example of that, where they're making everything in the game make more sense to each other.
Mining and smithing, like they did it to like simplify things to make things make sense, right? Because they're like, they want it to be like, but the thing is about RuneScape is like, personally for me, I like the mining and smithing rework, but the thing I love about old school is like, leveling up and like discovering new things which don't necessarily make sense. Like you can wear like green dragon hide at level 40, and you can like have a brine saber which is better than a rune scimitar and things like that. Like searching for things which other people may not know. They're just trying to make it linear now, which I suppose has its own charm, but it's each their own, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's also like what was I going to say? Well, I don't know. I just think they're gonna make like the starting era of RuneScape 3 a bit more plausible whenever the rest of the game is kind of ready for that.
They have to do that for mobile, dude.
Like they have been, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope they're gonna do that before mobile is released.
That's the thing. Like that's the reason why they were doing those lesser abilities and like hiding your like random abilities that you have, generating you an auto bar, making it revo at the start, making it simple, making it easy. And that's exactly why they're doing it. And that's exactly what they need. They need to, I guess, make it so, hey, look, you know, levels 1 to 20, like you don't even tell anything about anything. Just let them click and have fun. Yeah. Then introduce thresholds, then maybe introduce like an even bigger thing or whatever. And then show them the bar and be like, hey, look, you're actually doing this and you can actually do different stuff if you want to, or you can let it do it its own way, blah, blah, blah. And then they need something else to progress into now. So they've said that. They said they're doing that, and they're doing that with mobile and stuff. That's cool. But they need to give the new players something else to focus on. So once they have that, and they have that knowledge, they need something like old school has. They need like a free-to-play boss, or they need like a low-level thing, like a goal. Yeah. There's no low-level goal.
Something to work towards.
Yeah, there's only mid-level and high-level goals now. There's no low-level goal. They need those. They need to bring those back.
Do you have any examples? Like ideas?
Yeah, like a free-to-play boss and stuff. Like, because...
But what about like the KBD and the Giant Mole?
Because the thing with KBD and Giant Mole, you kill them on a maxed account and you get... Oh, look, you get all of these rewards, but they're worthless because you kill it in 2 seconds. They need a free-to-play only boss that then you can kill... And you're capped out at your gear. The best gear you can use on free to play is what Elder, like normal rune plus 3 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that then already means they can drop good stuff from that boss. Because if that boss is capped to be in 2-minute kills, even with max stats because you have bad gear, that boss can now actually make a couple of mil an hour and be something that lower levels can do. Obviously, not quite as well as higher levels, but still a decent standard if you have like rune.
Yeah, like they could make it like so your levels are capped at that boss and your gear is capped. So like you may have higher gear, but the stats would be the same for everyone entering it, so it doesn't inflate everything. And you're right, so like it doesn't give higher level players a massive advantage.
Yeah,
I
that's a
guess that
good
makes
point
sense.
about the flexibility RS3 might have if they do have the groundwork set up to be able to do something like that, to debuff higher level players to a certain limit when going to kill this
Yeah.
boss, or limiting it to free-to-play gear only. That would be a
Yeah.
kind of cool thing, because in old school, to be fair, the free-to-play bosses, Obor and Bryophyta, I believe they're called, their uniques are really not worth that much money anymore, because members have the ability to kill those bosses as well, and they
Right.
farm them. And in fact, the Moss Giant boss, the special drop from it is members only, which I never thought really made much sense. But if they
What?
release something in it really is a members only drop, the unique. I never understood that. It's one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in my life. If in RS3 they release something like that, though, I think that could definitely be great, because a lot of people probably do start free to play, and with the introduction of bonds in old school and RS3, it provides a path for them to get into membership, and it's like a whole new adventure like we had when we were kids, starting off with the free to play content, moving into begging our parents for $5 to get membership. But
Good
nowadays
times.
they can get it themselves, get the bond, get their account
Or-
going into membership, and it's a whole new adventure.
Or stealing a phone and then texting.
No, I remember calling RuneScape up when I was a kid, and they'd be like, "You need to listen to this for 3 minutes," and they like talk about RuneScape is an online adventure game. You're like, I know, I've listened to this like 4 times. Give me my membership. And then
Dude, I tried to do it off my school's phone. I got cancelled just in time, so I got caught. I
Oh my
felt bad.
gosh.
That's funny. I do think Bonds is a good update. Like, it was very controversial for its time as well. Because I feel like this is way back in a way, it's 2013. But I remember, like, the entire idea with the bonds was that bots bring in, like, millions of coins or whatever, and will be like a coin inflation thing or something like that, right? Or deflation, I guess is the word.
I think it was
But,
supposed to disencourage you from buying it from real world trade websites and just buy it
Yeah.
from them, basically.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's a good update though, but yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
It's in terms of like a good goal as well. But like, okay, back on the old school thing, right? Because there's no, I might be wrong here as well, do correct me, but I don't think there's any clear money making method in free to play, maybe in either game to be honest, that would boost you
Actually-
to a bond in a reasonable time.
Actually, old school RuneScape released a quest called, what's it called? I'll have to look at it. Give me 1 second. It's called Corsair Cove, and they actually released this whole new area called the Corsair Cove, which is free-to-play focused area, and they allowed you to cut maple trees, which isn't good money, but they brought a little bit of higher-leveled members content into free-to-play. They gave you a better fishing spot closer to a bank. They gave you these new creatures called ogresses to kill, which actually are decent money in free-to-play, like 100k to 200k an hour, which means, 10 to 20 hours of work, you can get a bond.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that did actually, I think, increase maybe some free-to-play retention. But it obviously
then
has higher
I
requirements to
gotta
kill those
ask.
monsters. Yeah, go
That
ahead.
sounds
Then I
perfect.
gotta bring up the big question about the bots.
Do it.
Okay, how many bots is in this place?
5-6 million. I don't know. I haven't counted. No, but
Yeah.
there's actually not that many bots in the Corsair Cove, simply because of the fact that the ogresses I spoke of are very heavily packed by actual free-to-play players. And, there's a certain amount per world, and there's a ton of people killing them, probably trying to get bonds. And the private area, which is more exclusive, requires you to complete Dragon Slayer. So I assume even less bots make it all the way through Dragon
that's
Slayer,
good.
getting their combat stats up in free-to-play just to grind out these creatures. So the real incentive in free-to-play to bot is things that you can just run through and suicide bot, like fishing or woodcutting, things that you can just start making money on really quickly. And then even if you get banned, you've made a little bit. So
That code thing is amazing. We need something like that, because the amount of time someone's like, "How do I make money for a bond?" And I'm like, "Well, you could do this really boring thing where you smith, ingots for like 1.5 mil an hour, and a bond's 20 mil. So it's only going to take you like 15 hours of smithing." And they're like, "Oh, great! I can't wait." They need something that just allows them to go somewhere and just do something that's actually engaging instead
Enjoy
of just
the game.
Yeah, and there's choices there, you said, right? So you can literally go and choose different things to do, and instead of it just being like, oh, there's like 1 or 2 really good methods that make you over a mil an hour, don't worry, they're really boring, and there's no variety to it. If they do that in RS3 like they did in old school, that sounds like the perfect update that both games really needed. So I'm glad you got that.
I would love
We
to
talked
see
about
them do that.
rewards. We talked about like rewards, right? Like something rewarding for a free to play, some goal to kind of achieve. This as well was a very popular suggestion on Reddit, which was basically that if you complete all the free to play quests, you're given 7 days of free membership.
Yeah, I've heard that suggested on the old school Reddit a lot as well, and I actually think that that's not a terrible idea. Actually, in old school mobile, if you make a new old school mobile account, the first account you make on your device, iOS or Android, you do get a 7-day free membership trial on there.
That's awesome.
I think that's probably increased player retention a lot. So I think the idea of giving a couple days membership for doing all quests or something like that could be good. Or they could even go the route of, you know how the quest point shop works, where you get a certain amount of money and a clue scroll item for doing quests. Does that work in free to play?
But I'm not sure.
It could be members only. I'll check.
Because if that's a free-to-play thing, they could potentially release some kind of roadmap that you follow. You know, you complete quests, you achieve level goals, they give you small amounts of money, and eventually you build up to having enough gold to get a bond yourself.
That would work in RS3.
That would be really good in RS3.
Members only, sadly.
Yeah, see, that kind of thing would incentivize them to do quests. They might get into the story content. In fact, this might even be a little controversial. Definitely. They could release the first few quests in a quest line to free to play, you know, like the Goblin quest in RS3. The quest line's so much more expanded than old school that they could release the first 1 or 2 quests in that quest line, you know, besides Goblin Diplomacy. I don't think that counts. You know, to get them a little taste of what the storylines are like in RS3, incentivize them to start questing.
They've tried that, dude. They've reworked so many free-to-play quests, and instead of like Rune Mysteries, I don't know what it is, but Rune Mysteries is now 2 quests. Rune Memories and something else, and like it's so different to what it used to be that I just didn't like it straight away, and I couldn't engage with the storyline and the graphics and stuff. But I suppose they have tried that.
Memory thing, the nostalgia thing, maybe.
Yeah, that's on me. That's on me.
It could definitely be the nostalgia thing. I don't even mean changing the quests. I just mean straight up converting them into free to plays. I mean, like, what's the rewards from Death to the Dorgashan or whatever? You get like a bone crossbow. Is that really gonna be OP for free to play? No. It's just something more for them to do in free to play that, you know, bots aren't going to do it. There's no real reason for them to do it.
I feel like as a new player would really appreciate that as well, like having quests to do, because I feel like that is a big like adventure appeal to RuneScape.
Having a roadmap, dude, like having some guidance at the very beginning where you're overwhelmed with this massive world with like 30 skills, like 500 quests, so like it's hard to know where to start. So like having a roadmap, they've got like I don't know what it is, the Blood Pact armor or something, which has like 2 or 3 quests, which isn't very good, but like if they expanded that, like, and involved the quest point shop in it, I think that'd be very good for free to play.
Oh, dude, I think they tried to do that a while ago. I'm not sure if they still do that, but whenever new players used to start, they used to have this path system that would basically guide them with trials. To like the Blood Pact and whatever, which was very annoying because of the cluster that the interface is in RuneScape 3. You didn't really know how to turn it off.
Exactly, it's so annoying. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's the Pathfinder stuff, right?
Yeah, and you don't know how to turn it off, and it just like it's stuck with like these yellow trails leading you somewhere, and you don't really want to follow it because RuneScape is a sandbox game. It just looks, it's very forced, right?
I have a funny story about the Pathfinder. My mum watches me stream sometimes. And she wanted to like kind of get into the game to see if she'd actually enjoy it or whatever. She plays mobile and like Facebook games like Candy Crush and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So she was like, "Oh, I'll give it a try." And you know, she's followed this Pathfinder thing, and they're like, they told me to do this quest, and like she'd done the Blood Pact or whatever, and then like the Pathfinder just like instantly ended, and then she was like, "I don't know what to do now because they've literally just chucked me in, and I don't know what to do." And she was like, they didn't say anything, nothing happened, so. The Pathfinder can give you a path, but apparently when you complete the Pathfinder, it literally then just says bye, and it doesn't explain anything or anything. Like, it doesn't say, "Hey, welcome to RuneScape, you can explore." Yeah. So she got way overwhelmed and just didn't like it and stopped playing. Like,
honestly, no, I think that's a good. Not everyone at the same time. That's
you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the tutorial island does that really good regarding showing the player for instance, the quest symbol. Because it'd be like, if you see this symbol over an NPC, that means they got a quest for you or something like that, right? And I think that is a really great thing that RuneScape 3 should do, especially after things like the path system.
Yeah.
Because they would be like, okay, you did this thing, really well done, now just look for this quest mark, you'll be able to get a quest from that guy, haha. You know? And I think that'd be a great way to send them off, because they would go around the world looking for people, and they would see the quest mark and go, oh wow, I'll check what this is about. Yeah. And they would talk to this random NPC somewhere, and they'd be like, can you kill this vampire for me, you know? I think that's a really good way of getting things going, and you'll be able to. I really like. Obviously, they have some kind of like quest requirements. You need like 27 range, for instance, which again boosts them off to start training. You know, because when you get 27 range, you reach that entire quest. And I think that's just a really good way of starting out the game. But currently, they're not making that purely because, like you said, the Pathfinder just leaves you there, or the tutorial isn't good enough to show where to go, or it's too complicated to get going. Or it's a spam bot everywhere, it's scamming your account for some reason. You know, there's so many like discouraging things that can be dealt with so easily.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they're not doing that.
They're focusing on high-level content in mobile now. They've not invested in this sort of thing for a long time.
And to be fair, though, the old school was doing the same thing when mobile was being produced.
Yeah.
There really wasn't much in the ways of big content coming out very often in the old school because of mobile. But since mobile's come out, they've been releasing content a lot more often. So hopefully once RS3's devs are done with mobile, they can focus on this stuff more. But in the vein of what we were talking about before, the Pathfinder, just kind of leaving you there, I feel like, it does need to be expanded a bit more. It needs to be more teaching. Because think of any other MMO you've played, any of the other successful MMOs that are out there. You got like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy 14. I haven't personally played, but I'll assume it's pretty similar. Even though most MMOs are sandbox, at the start they are insanely linear, and that's to really cement in the bits of the game that you need to know about, you know. But in RS3, there's that tiny little portion where you learn a little bit, and then it's just kind of like, boom, you're in the world. Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Well, one thing which I think is so important and RS3 devs need to focus on is that on old school, when you make an account in Tutorial Island, the first thing that you see is that you're not the only one there. There are like 5 or 6 people in the beginning stage doing stuff, right? On RS3, when you make an account, you're in like this solo instance and you don't see any individuals there, and once you come onto the mainland you don't see anyone, so like it's taking away the social aspect of the game, like it's not showing people that it's such a big part of the game. And I think it's just that's something which old school does well, because you start on Tutorial Island and everyone who's a noob goes to Lumbridge, and it's I feel like that's important and it's not being addressed.
That's a good point, too, making people understand that it really is an MMO and that there's a social aspect to it. Like, I don't know how the tutorial is now in RS3. I know you guys were mentioning that they're bringing back Tutorial Island.
No, it's been back for years.
It's been back for years. Okay, so maybe make it so new players all start in the same world, so you always see the other people that are doing the tutorial, get the social aspect. Maybe
that's so important.
More diversified content in free-to-play to have people all over the world as opposed to...
Because there aren't that many new players starting new accounts, right? As opposed to old school where there's like an influx of new accounts every day. Whether they're legitimate players or bots, it doesn't matter. Like there's so many new accounts being made every day. Whereas I really like the idea of like having a set world for new players. That's a great idea. I think that would
be good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really want them to decrease like overall worlds in general, both free to play and members. Like you can't say like, oh, that's a bad idea because skilling spots or whatever. But like currently, at least RS3 has the 140 worlds.
That's way too many.
If you remove 10 of them, there's still 1,000 players divided onto 130 servers, which is still quite a lot of people being added to other servers, which will increase popularity in the game. And that is like my appeal with old school as well. It's a large player base and how there's people everywhere. You know?
It's really common to see RuneScape 3 worlds with less than 100 people in it, and it's just it's quite sad to see that, and especially on free to play. Like you want free to play to be a good advert of the game and busy and stuff, but it's really empty.
I think that the world consolidation, making less worlds, really isn't too bad of an idea. I think old school RuneScape, when you combine free to play and members, has like 300 something worlds, but people have been asking for less worlds for a long time because some areas of the game do feel dead. I mean, even in old school, you do get that feel sometimes if you're on a less populated world. It's like, oh, there's not as many people, and I understand fighting for skilling spots and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing on old school, but like
that's not as
so
much of a problem in RS3. Yeah, especially if they continue reworks like mining and smithing, that could pretty much be an eliminated problem, and consolidating the worlds would make it even more social. Yeah. Like I think if they did that to woodcutting and maybe even fire making, I know they kind of have in the higher level areas like Prif, there's the bonfire. Yeah. If they keep doing things like that and bringing people into smaller areas to train these skills together, that could have a huge positive impact.
Skilling bosses,
Exactly,
maybe
yeah.
like Wintertodt or something.
Absolutely.
Like, where everyone
That'd be
is
really
together.
nice, yeah.
The other thing about
they're doing that with Hunter as well now, aren't they? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're making like the big, I forgot the big time hunting or something. I don't
Big
know.
game hunter.
Big game hunting, and that as well is instant, so you don't have to like share, like fight for the skilling spots.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's a really good addition, you know. And I think they should just keep on going with that, and that would be a great time to decrease the worlds as well and make each world more popular.
Yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
because even with the mining and smithing rework, where it's consolidated down the skilling spots to each tier of level and stuff, and you do see a couple people there usually no matter what world you're on, but imagine they consolidate the worlds, and you go mining, and there's 15 or 20 people at every spot having a conversation. You know, that's not a lot more lively. It's a lot more reason to keep coming back and playing. You make more friends. You get more attached to the game.
It's
Exactly, you make some kind of relation to it.
It's also like a social validation. Like it's quite strange, like phenomena online, right? But when you're doing something and you see that it's not very popular, you already start to like doubt yourself, like whether this is the right thing to do.
Oh, definitely.
And like, but if you see like there's loads of people here, then you feel like calm and relaxed and like, oh, they're doing it too, so I must be doing something right. It's okay that I'm playing this game in the way that I am. So it's so important. That is something that they take into consideration with future updates.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure.
I do think social media is a bit disheartening in that sense, because whenever you go on both Reddits, to be fair, it's just a ton of people pointing out the flaws.
Yeah.
True. That is true.
Which is kind of funny in one way. I just imagine there's like a new player going, "Oh boy, I love myself some RuneScape," and just decides to check out the Reddit. There's a ton of people going, "This game sucks. Nobody cares for it."
Do you think new players would go on Reddit? Like, I'm personally quite new to Reddit, so I'm not sure.
I think so, honestly. Like, I feel like for someone who's like an avid gamer, or like not even necessarily a very big time gamer, would have to know about Reddit at least.
Right.
And if you Google RuneScape, or like RuneScape forums or RuneScape guides or tutorials or one thing, you get up two sites, which is both, well, three to be honest: RuneScape Wiki, which refers to the Reddit, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of people would end up on Reddit and see how the community is very social there.
Yeah.
I think Reddit is actually really positive for both communities, even if a lot of the people on there are just complaining about the game most of the time. I mean, it really does form that community bond. I mean, just a specific example of how much of an impact Reddit has on the RuneScape community. Look at I'm sure you guys have heard of Swampletics.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
I mean, his series is massive. It is absolutely huge, and this is not a dig at Settled or anything. His content is absolutely top tier, and it has been for the long time that I've been watching him, even before he did this. But social media, and specifically Reddit, definitely gave him that huge kick. Like when his posts actually got a bunch of upvotes on the old school Reddit, and it got to the front page of Reddit, and it has several times. I mean, it has made a huge impact on that. A lot of people probably coming to the old school Reddit after finding his series, posted on there, joining the discussion, maybe even trying out the game after seeing it. So I think Reddit is huge and important for both games.
Right, okay.
I agree, definitely.
As toxic as it can be sometimes.
Now, it's actually kind of interesting you mentioned with him regarding Reddit front page, which is obviously a very good advertisement for both him and the game, right? And I found that to be a potential issue with regarding RuneScape YouTubers as well, which is very relevant for you, Maikeru and Ravlar here. Because I think that a lot of people will go on to RuneScape streams, RuneScape 3 that is, and be very confused because they don't understand what they're clicking.
Exactly, it's so overwhelming. If someone doesn't know the game and they see RuneScape 3 with like the 100 different interfaces, action bars here and there, like how are they meant to understand something if the person who's doing it isn't willing to dumb it down enough to like take it to a person who's never seen it before?
Exactly.
It's
you don't have that problem in old school.
It's much easier on old school, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge advertisement for itself, because you have a lot of... The thing is, like, I imagine myself going on an old school stream, right? And what I'm going to see is most likely some kind of PKing or some kind of skilling or whatever, I don't know. But every time I do, there's a lot of people on the server, because you see like white dots everywhere. There's people chatting, there's action going on, there's easy to understand graphics, it's something you can relate to from previously. There's a ton of people praising the game in the chat.
Yeah.
And that's just huge. Like, if I were unknown to the game, trying to find something new to play, I would feel that's very interesting.
Yeah, engaging.
It goes back to what Ravlar was saying about the whole societal pressure and seeing other people doing it makes you feel better about doing it yourself. And that's a good point, as it goes back to the whole kind of bringing back seeing a bunch of other players doing the same thing that you're doing or having them all in the same area as you. But
Yeah.
definitely also the point about the interfaces being confusing, not only for new players, but for viewers on Twitch. And there are a lot of games that I've played that are MMOs that I think are great, one of which is Star Wars The Old Republic. But the viewership on
Yeah.
Twitch is nothing. I mean, there's like 100-something viewers max. And that's just because you look at the game, you don't really know what's going on. It's not really new player friendly. And I think that's probably a big downfall of RS3 as well. Because if I didn't know everything in the game that I know now, I would look at that stream and I'd just be like, what the hell am I watching?
The thing is, guys, like if we go back to the point about clients on old school, like you said, like lots of stuff is already built into RS3, but like you need to know where to find it. Like you need to understand the interfaces and stuff. Whereas like with clients, like you're not like told to go on the client straight away. You go on the old school client first, and then once you get familiar with the game, you get introduced to the client with like loads of different options and stuff like that. Whereas with RS3, you're like bombarded with it straight away. So it's like, what the hell is going on? So people get overwhelmed.
Definitely.
I think the interface is really a big turn off just because of how confusing it is, especially due to the preconception people have of RuneScape being simple.
Yeah. But
Can I propose a separate like example of things that I find confusing?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Because, like, I find this in both games, to be fair. Especially, like, I started old school not too long ago. I tried it out, at least. And I found the same problem there as I do, I guess, with RuneScape 3, which is knowing what's the best item to get, or things like that. I've been watching a progress series of Aliam, a big fan of him. And he's not new to the game, but he's not played in many years. He returned and started like a from scratch progress series, right? Mm-hmm. He keeps finding a lot of items or things or progresses, methods or whatever, where he has no idea what these items do or no idea what to do. For instance, if you want to go bossing, how do you know what you're going to wear, right? Or with old school, like, how do you know what the best method is unless you have to, like, forcefully discover it yourself, you know? And I find that's very confusing as well, because you don't really know what to get or how to get it.
That's where the community comes in, though, right? Like
Definitely.
Everyone.
That's the big community aspect of old school. Is it's so intertwined that in old school, if you have a question and you just go to the Grand Exchange and you ask it, somebody there will answer it for you. And there's another thing that they've recently added to old school that would be an awesome
and they'll
addition
double
to
your
RS3.
money.
And they'll double your money. And you can stake them 55.
It's a good shop right
odds.
there, isn't it? They help you out anyway.
But no, for real. And they added I think this is the old school client as well as RuneLite. But there's a feature where there's a button that says Wiki, and you click on that button, and then you click on anything in the game, whether it's an item, an NPC, whatever, and it'll bring you to the wiki page for that item or NPC, and that would be so helpful for RuneScape 3.
We have a /wiki space item, and it pushes you to the wiki page.
We do have that, but would a new player know about that?
Probably not. I think that if you added a button, that would be really nice.
Yeah. A button rather than the / would.
Or
like
if they introduced that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like in the beginning, like in the tutorial island, like if you're ever unsure about something, just type in / wiki.
Definitely.
Yeah. Otherwise, people won't know about it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a problem with that either, advertising the wiki or advertising the subreddit in the game, because it gets people more engaged with the community and gives them a base of knowledge for the game too. So that's
they advertise Twitch in game.
That's the thing, I think. If they had it where it wasn't just a / and like there was no like clicking or like, because you have to know about it to type it in, right? So you said you had a button on old school. If they had a button rather than / wiki, I feel like that button, it could be on your ribbon. Like you have your ribbon where it has like your character, you have your membership stuff, you have your event, you have your settings, like all on that ribbon. You can just literally add a button on the ribbon that says wiki.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
That would be a very simple.
Because the button, the way it works on old school is it's just like an item. You know, you click on an item and then you're on the use setting, and then you click on something else to use it. It works just like that, except when you use it on something, boom, it's bringing you to the wiki. So yeah, I think a button is just easier for people than typing it out, especially if it's something really confusingly worded like Radimus Urkel or whatever his name is. Especially for non-native English speakers, that'll be hell.
That's true, actually. Yeah, using it on it specifically is easier, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a lot of things that the RuneScape 3 developers should take a look at for old school. And just
they definitely should. There's no shame in that whatsoever.
No, it isn't.
I feel they maybe have a bit of an ego thing. Like they're not willing to look at the best practices that old school have, and they don't apply it. That's something which that's my perception. It could be wrong completely, but I feel like they need to be a bit more humble and just ask for advice where like old school have done well. How can we apply it to our game?
I feel like it works a bit both ways in a way. A good example is the Grand Exchange, I think. Because when old school was released, they were like really against that until they realized like, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then they introduced it, but they didn't give it like RuneScape 3 any credit. They were like, yeah, this is our idea. This was our doing, you know. Well, I think it's a bit of the same. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, old school RuneScape takes ideas from RS3 all the time, and I'm totally for that, taking the best of each game and putting it into the other. I mean, it's 2019, exactly. There's a lot more information out there, and old school RuneScape, like you guys have all mentioned, isn't really old school RuneScape. I mean, it's nowhere near the game that we all played when we were 10. And there's nothing wrong with that. And with RS3 taking ideas from old school RuneScape, I don't think there's a problem. Like, they both released Silver Jewelry, you know, the new Silver Jewelry with new updates, and it's been really good for both games. And I don't have any problem with them I wouldn't even have a problem with them taking ideas for quests from old school. You know, old school's taking some quest ideas from RS3. RS3 should take some from old school.
Dragon Slayer 2 and RS3.
Yes. And they could, and the beauty of both games is they're in separate universes. They could take the story somewhere entirely new. And that might even entice some old school players to try RS3.
Exactly. Slightly a different question here for you guys. Okay. But how do you think Jagex are with old school content creators? Like, have you had any personal experiences with them, like reaching out to you and like offering support, or just like letting them know that they're there if you need something?
The only real interactions I've had personally with Jagex is in the year 2017 and 2018. They offered me a ticket to RuneFest on Twitter, but other than that, I haven't had any real interaction specifically with them. But they are really good to a lot of the more popular content creators, especially on Twitch. I mean, they fly people out to RuneFest. Right now, they're actually flying players out to test Song of the Elves, which is the new quest for Prifddinas. Like we were just talking about taking ideas from both games. They're bringing Prifddinas into old school, which is great. You know, I've been wanting that for a long time. Yeah. And they're really, really good to the developers. And I actually heard you guys have, well, at least Maikeru I've seen has been brought out to Jagex HQ to test some things out before. Am I correct?
Me, Ravlar, and a couple other content creators, but we didn't get taken out. We all had to pay our way and go there and stuff, But we were
all local. So much that they don't appreciate RuneScape 3 content creators the same way as do with
that whole thing was amazing, though. That was a really good opportunity. I'm not taking away from the opportunity, but we didn't get sent there for free. We still had to make the effort and spend the money, which is fine in my opinion, because I don't really care. It was a really good trip.
Locals.
I loved it.
So it's okay for me and Mike because we're like an hour away. But say for example, if you're a United States content creator for RS3, it's tough to get you guys here. So
that just annoys me. I guess it's a bit of a topic for a different time, maybe. But I don't know. I just feel like the entire variety between old school creators and RuneScape 3 creators is very visually different, and it annoys me quite a lot because to me that tells me that Jagex don't appreciate the RuneScape 3 creators as much.
But do they have a reason to, right? Because we all have less subs than the old school community. Is that a justification?
But it shouldn't really matter though. Like, okay, the example that I always use, right, is that I was flown over to RuneFest in 2016, right? And I asked like why that was why they would fly me up with that, but whatever. I can't remember why I would ask such a cringy question, but I asked that, and they basically told me that it's because they appreciate what I'm doing for the game. The next year, however, no RuneScape 3 creator was flown over, and they doubled the budget for old school creators. Yeah. And then I'm sitting there being told the previous year that I appreciated my effort and would award that with the RuneFest trip. But the next year they wouldn't do that. So where did the appreciation go? Do they no longer appreciate me? Is that it? You know, or RuneScape 3 creators in general?
Maybe they just have a fixed budget and they're like, okay, how do we allocate this fairly? People with the most subs get it, and then they can't argue. Like, I personally don't have any idea how it works, but I do feel like old school is valued more. But I also feel there is a justification for that. So
it's I'm guessing it's market based because obviously there's more to take from with the old school content creators. But I still think they should do some kind of effort for the RuneScape 3 ones.
What I'm taking from this is that Jagex does not appreciate what I'm doing, and I'm going to start a strike right now with everyone who didn't get invited to RuneFest. Everybody come together. Let's start a protest. No RuneScape videos till I get my free flight over to the UK. Damn it.
Yeah.
But no, you're totally right. And I think that because you look at the old school community and there are absolute pillars of the community. I mean, everybody knows who Bodhi is. I mean, you start playing old school and you hear about Bodhi before you get off Tutorial Island. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These people are pinnacles.
He's
of
right
the
there, though.
community.
He's the Adam.
He is literally outside of Lumbridge Castle. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely right about them propping up creators on old school really hard and promoting them. You know, they host them after the stream. I'm sure RuneScape hosts streamers as well.
Yeah, they've definitely improved. RS3 have.
Yeah, but it's still not good enough.
They do need to do more for creators, but there isn't really much incentive, I guess, for them to try harder than anything in that regard.
Honestly, Maikeru and Ravlar's trip to Jagex is a perfect example where they live a narrow way and they couldn't be bothered to buy their ticket. And currently they're flying settled over from the USA with the plane tickets and hotel covered for every single direction. He's not paying a single dime to get there, and that annoys me so much.
You know how much it costs for a flight from the US to the UK? And this is from someone who lives in Michigan, which is almost as close as you can get to the UK in the United States.
Probably
I'm
return.
I'm guessing
It's well over
16
1,000.
trips for Maikeru to
really?
go to Jagex.
It was over.
Probably.
I tried to get a ticket a couple years ago. I was thinking about going to RuneFest. I was looking at ticket prices. I think the cheapest I could find was $1,200 for a round trip.
Jesus.
Oh god, dude, that is a rip-off.
I just can't believe they paid that for people to come out and test out the Prifdinus content, because there's nothing even crazy that's coming out there. I don't know what they're so afraid of releasing without being tested, but you're totally right. They're flying people out to test Song of the Elves, where, I mean, the most extreme content that's there is going to be, I don't know, the Gauntlet, which is just like a new solo bossing activity. I mean, there's nothing super extreme, and they're still inviting so many content creators out there. They get the social thing going. Everybody's tweeting about it. Their posts on Reddit about it. You know,
I don't really
stirs it up
think it's
and
about
hypes
the
up
content, honestly. It's, to me, based on what I've seen and how I perceive the old school community content creator thing, I feel like it's not really about testing the content, but it's more like about a ton of friends getting together on the company bill.
True.
That's what I feel like.
Creating goodwill amongst the community as well. Like, they'll let, like, the people who are invited will let people know that they've been invited, and then they'll, like, the people will be like, oh, Jagex is really valuing these people that we support. It's a good, like, positive multiplier that they do there. So there are benefits for it, but it is expensive. I understand that. It's super expensive. But, like, for the Theatre of Blood, I completely understand, like, the investment that they had to get people there and test it out. But like you said, for this content, maybe it's not as necessary.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there. I don't think it is really about the content. It promotes the game, honestly, when they tweet about it, and it's buddy getting together, and it hypes people up when they see all these content creators they watch together. You know? And then they say, oh, why are you there? They say, oh, they were here to test out this new update, and then it indirectly promotes the game and gets people excited for the new update. Another thing that Old School's done magnificently, talking about rewarding content creators, is they reward players sometimes for certain things. Like, they have competitions. Like, a long time ago, they had a competition for designing the rooftops. You know, where players design content for in the game. Then when the Inferno came out, the first person to complete the Inferno got lifetime membership on RuneScape. I mean, that's awesome. It was Wooks, obviously, but it's just stuff like that is so awesome. If they'd offered that for Solak, that would have been even. I mean, Solak was huge for RuneScape. Not Solak. Was it Solak? Is that the
it was Solak, yeah.
That was so hype for RuneScape 3. How many viewers did people have trying to kill Solak? There were a ton of people from Old School watching that I knew were hyped watching people trying to kill this. If they released something in RS3 that was similar to the Inferno's difficulty and said, first person to beat this gets lifetime membership, RuneFest tickets, and gets flown out next year or something, that would generate so much excitement. Yes, for sure.
But that would just, like, it's a great point, a very good point, right? But like RuneScape 3 is now receiving a new continent, right? We have this like Land Out of Time thing coming out with like a Hunter update, a agility course, Slayer things, one thing and another. In the meantime, they're flying the guys over from Old School to try out some Lewis City coming out somewhere in the place. But trying out RuneScape 3's largest update in 2019, no big deal. We'll take that with no bugs probably. It's gonna probably be fine, right?
Definitely.
There's another thing is, like, when you look at like Old School, it gets so many adverts everywhere, whether it be an actual advert on a video on YouTube, whether it be a little small square advert. I get them everywhere. Obviously, it's a targeted ad towards me, but I'm getting the Old School ads everywhere. I understand it's a bigger game, sure, but how is RS3 expected to grow if they literally never advertise it?
Yeah, but that's the thing. When I spoke to JMods, they said that they don't aim to attract new people to the game. Their only audience is the people who've played RuneScape in the past to bring them back.
But an advert could bring them back.
An advert could bring them back, but at the same time, like, it's not gonna... If they're gonna do that, like, I don't know. It's a heavy investment to not get, like, that many new people.
I think I need to say something a little harsh, and this isn't to, say something negative towards the J-mods or anything, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. If they're trying to attract the old players back, I think that's a terrible idea because the old players are already attracted back. They're on old school RuneScape.
Yeah, exactly. You're not wrong.
They're exactly right there.
They're trying to steal their own players.
The marketing strategy from RS3 is appalling. It's actually really bad. Whereas, like, I know that with old school they do the competitive events with Deadman and stuff, and that may not translate like necessarily to RS3, but it doesn't need to be PvP in RS3. You could have like PVM competitions where you can just create the same amount of hype and stuff like that. And they just don't do that.
They need to do something. The game. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, mate. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying they need to do something that converts into YouTube content too, because all of these events, Inferno. They even had a skilling event where people who could get the most total level within 24 hours of playtime.
King of the skill,
King of the skill. And then
that would work well on RS3.
That would work great on RS3.
They were actually working on that. And I remember Shawnee talked about that. I can't remember what he called it, but it was supposed to be some kind of skilling competition. I think it was a clan competition, actually, a clan cup, where it would be in the form of a skill, or you have like a group of 10 people skilling in a skill, and whoever gained the most XP within an hour, I think.
That's not good though, because people just MTX, like they'll just buy bonus XP and stuff. They need
that wouldn't
something...
be. It would be base XP. They would remove all of those kind of bonus things, outfits.
That's
everything.
What they need. Then.
The thing on old school King of the Skill, it was a special server you had to log into.
Yeah,
everyone was Iron Man off the start, and features were limited in the game. You could only do certain things, like you couldn't just trade someone over all these darts to Fletch or whatever.
Yeah, but I meant towards Will's like clan comment. Oh, they do clan competitions, and they have done in the past, but typically if you're trying to run your own competition in your clan nowadays and stuff anyway, like everyone just has bonus XP, so you can't do like a skilling based one. If they were going to make one, it has to be like King of the Skill on old school where they have a separate server. That would be
Shawnee actually made a forum post about this and included all of the things that would be restricted, and he basically added everything that gives any form of perk in that skill, so it would just be base XP, nothing else.
But this is a clan thing, though, right? This is a clan thing. If you want to promote YouTube content and you want to make it enjoyable on Twitch, it needs to be individual focused.
Yeah, clan is about keeping the players you already have. The individual focused competition with clear-cut rewards that people actually want to try to get brings new players. And I mean, okay, look at Deadman Mode. It's not really about the event itself. Because, I mean, the event itself, it gets a bunch of viewers on Twitch. It probably gets some people that don't usually watching. But let me point this out. I just searched up OSRS DMM Deadman Mode on YouTube. First video, 1 day ago, 120,000 views. People are so excited about seeing a prize pool and seeing people compete for that prize pool. It is something like, look at game shows. Look how popular game shows are.
They want someone to support, right?
Exactly.
They want to invest themselves in someone that they can look up to and see exactly what they're doing and maybe mirror their content like sometime somewhere down the line.
It's a very good analytic point, Rav. Wow. That's actually cool,
Yeah, imagine if there was some kind of competition and me and Maikeru both going for the victory. People go to his channel to watch it, they come to my channel to watch it, and it's some kind of event like Deadman Mode where you can upload something new every day about your progress towards the final day, where it leads up to some big climax.
Yeah, it'd be lovely.
You see that like OSRS actually have the foundations where Jagex put those competitions in place, whereas on RS3, like me and Maikeru, we did a challenge. But we had to make that challenge, between us, and like that was literally us and nothing else. Like over 5 days, who could make the most money or something like that. But like, say for example, if Jagex like enforced some rules and made it so like no one could cheat or anything, that would be much more official and much more attractive to people to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially if, like I said, there's a reward at the end. Like, I'm sure you guys... I think I saw that. Didn't you guys say, like, something like whoever lost gets all the other person's money or something? Or whoever wins gets the other person's money?
He had to eat a chili.
Had to eat a chili. There you go. Right.
A ghost pepper and it hurt.
So imagine if they set up a challenge like that. And it's just hypothetical. It's not the best idea. But everyone starts with a level 1 Iron Man account. 7 days go by. Whoever has the highest bank value wins
That'd be awesome.
$1,000, right?
I would
That's
be so
cool.
into that.
Yes.
so into that.
It would
Let's
be
do it.
awesome. And a lot of people might complain that it's too RNG based, you know, whoever gets lucky or whatever. But I mean, everything
RuneScape
in
is
old school
RNG,
RuneScape
yeah.
is RNG. Deadman mode is RNG to an extent. You know, you could hit zeros on every hit. It's just RNG.
It'd be so cool to see how Iron Men then came up with making money. Would they out? Could they do this? Would they do that? Would they feed?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many possibilities. It's
Dude, let's do that. What a great idea.
And seeing everybody's different strategies, like I was talking about the content creators. You know, you go to Maikeru's channel, maybe he's training his combat up. He's about to go to Telos, you know, on day 5. You go to Guide's channel, he's over here sitting in, you know, Menaphos, thieving from the gullible tourist, you know? You check out Ravlar's channel, he's like, you know, who knows? That's the cool thing about it.
KVD.
Sitting in the corner crying.
Exactly.
I can't do it anymore.
Giving up.
And that's what's so cool about the
Minecraft now.
Deadman mode, is there's one world. It's one world, and everyone has to compete on that one world. And so if there's one world and you got to make as much money as you can, I mean, let's say, you head over to, I don't know, Krill. Oh no, there's someone already doing Krill. What am I going to do? You know, you got to think of something else to do. And you take out instances, you take out anything that gives you an advantage over others in a way that kind of goes against the one world principle. And you have a lot of like really thinking that you have to do, a lot of strategizing, and you'd be doing content that probably nobody's ever done in the main game. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exploring the game through a different lens.
Because in Deadman mode with the one world, you got to find a place to train where no one else is training. So there's people doing quests. They're in like a basement that I've never heard of, killing friggin' giant spiders or something. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's a great, I really want something like that for RuneScape 3. I think that'd be really nice for it.
We need to
I'd love
make
to watch
it.
it. We should.
Well, let's make it. Right, but we're getting overtime, guys, so we should probably start cutting it off for this time.
Last question. Can I ask one
go
last
for it.
question?
Sure.
What do you think of polling? Because that's a big part of old school versus like RS3, which we've not touched upon. Because old school poll everything, and RS3 don't poll.
I don't think it's a good step for RuneScape 3 now, purely because of the MTX stuff, because it wouldn't really get anywhere. And it'd just be like a treasure cove. What, treasure cove? Is that what we call it? Treasure cove for new drama and new arguments, where it'd be like, oh, why are you releasing treasure hunter updates? We started polling things now, remember? It'd be a bit of a mess, I think.
I see what you mean. But I think the polls in RS3 in the past have been really good, like the poll too, because they kept arguing against adding a threshold to Virago, but there was clear community support for it, so they poll it, and lo and behold, the players wanted it, so they implemented it.
But they don't use it enough.
No, exactly. They should poll more things. I don't think they should poll everything. I don't think they should poll the land out of time. You know, should we put this update into the game? I mean, they've already put dev time into it. That's the big downside of old school. If the players voted no to something, all that dev time is gone. It's over. Yeah. They've wasted money, they've wasted time and resources. But in RS3, what if they pull something like, I don't know, they could pull XP rates on things in the land out of time. I don't know, just little things that the players might be controversial. Like if they had a new best in slot skilling spot or something like that, and people complain about that ruining the meta or something, they could pull things like that. They could pull little quality of life things to see if they're actually desired. You know, like the new weapon changes.
Already. What they already do, which I think is pretty good, is that they stream content that's coming up very soon, or they make a Reddit post about it, and they collect feedback for that. Now, it's not directly polling, but it's a good chance for Jagex to see where the mistakes are at, or where the flaws are at, or what can be improved. Especially also with like big changes to the community. For instance, the nerfing of Hunter that's coming up with Land of Time. They made a post about that and got feedback on it, so people could say their worries and Jagex could address that properly. So
they do listen pretty well, to be fair.
Yeah, they haven't done that for a very long time. I mean, like, well, they're doing it now, but like that as well. A couple of years ago, they didn't really do that. So it's definite improvements going on. Which I feel like nice.
I feel like they've done very well when it comes to listening to feedback recently. Like they've literally changed the comp cape again, like very, very recently. They added 100 extra HP on the comp and max cape. Or it might just be the comp cape, but they took away 100 HP from the comp cape, right? Because you only get 200 with the Reaper. So they added that extra 100 HP. They've added extra stats on the Kiln cape to then make up with Reaper and Kiln now being the same as the old comp. And they've also done things like they've added 1-tick Hunter back by the cape perk. And the cape perk was going to be something completely different. Everyone really disliked the fact that their 1-tick Hunter is going. I was one of those people because it's what makes Hunter fun. Tick manipulating skills, getting the most out of them. That is the best way to skill. Old school, RS3, whatever, both do it perfectly. tick manipulation is what makes the game competitive and fun.
Yeah.
They were taking that away, and now they've added it back, which is great. But, you know, they're actually listening to some extent now, which is good. But there's still obviously things they do that's completely stupid, but they're listening more. They're listening more.
Okay, Maikeru, you've got me. You changed my mind. I didn't know that they were returning the tick manipulation via the Hunter skill cape. That's what it is?
So the Hunter skill cape was going to have like a 20% chance to instantly lay a trap for you. But now when you get the Hunter skill cape, you can put it on your action bar, use it the same way as you would use a potion beforehand. And now you'll be able to use the cape, then place the trap and one tick.
See, that's fantastic. That's one of the things that I was thinking about that I thought a polling system would work well for, is because I haven't met anybody that was happy about the one-tick hunter methods being taken out of the game.
It came out of nowhere, dude. Like, it was,
So
like,
I do see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean about the community discussion and reaching a reasonable thing. But I think something like that being polled could actually give them a better starting point. You know, because if it fails the poll, then they can say, well, why did it fail the poll?
I still agree for polling still. I was just like making the point of they're getting better,
Definitely. No, I think that's a huge step in the right direction for Jagex with these kind of issues.
Let's call it a night, shall we?
All right.
Yeah. It is 1 a.m. Jesus, let's go.
We have a lot of things to talk about the next one, though. We need to
Dude, you've been an awesome guest, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming.
The first guest and like definitely setting the standard. I'm really, really happy.
Well, thank you guys
very
for having me.
reflective. I really like that. You're really like, but we're gonna think about this side of things and that side of things. I'm sitting here feeling dumb because you're so smart. So that's fun. Well, thanks for joining. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, see you guys next time.
And remember, it's a podcast, so don't ask for game footage. just
Maikeru is viewers. Jeez.
Wow, why you? Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.